Just hours before the filing deadline, the entire script for Los Angeles politics completely flipped.
It really did. I mean, nobody saw it coming.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking you out west to look at the 2026 Los Angeles mayoral race.
And usually with these big city races, the story's pretty predictable, right?
Right. You get a Democrat in charge, maybe crime goes up, city services struggle, and then...
And then a law and order conservative swoops in to challenge them.
Exactly. But if you think that's what's happening in LA right now, you really got to reset your expectations. We're looking at a stack of sources today.
Yeah, great sources.
Right. We've got reporting from Cal Matters, The American Prospect, JCI Worldwide, The Forward, and The Guardian. And they are painting a picture of an incumbent mayor, Karen Bass, who isn't fighting a Republican. She's fighting an ally from the left.
Her own political ally. City Council member Nithya Raman.
So our mission today for this deep dive is to unpack this. Is Los Angeles shifting from your standard liberal bastion to the vanguard of democratic socialism? And what does that mean for how the city is actually governed?
It's a huge question. And it's a really high-stakes battle for the soul of the city.
Let's start with the mood on the ground. The electorate in LA right now is, well, the sources use a very specific word.
Hangry.
Hangry. I love that.
Yeah, Cal Matters and The Guardian both used it. Voters are frustrated by city services, they're exhausted by crises, and they're out of patience.
And the main catalyst for that anger, the thing that really broke the camel's back, was the 2025 Palisades fire.
Absolutely. That was devastating.
For those of you who might not remember the exact stats, it was massive. 31 people killed, 16,000 structures destroyed. But the fire itself isn't the whole political story here. It's what happened after.
The after-action report. This is where Mayor Bass took a huge hit to her popularity.
Right, because according to the reporting, that official document was edited. It was scrubbed to downplay the shortcomings of city leadership.
Exactly. The allegations are that they softened the language to avoid legal liability for the city.
Which, you know, if you just lost your home, finding out the city might be covering up its own slow response.
That's infuriating.
It really is. So Boss is suddenly incredibly vulnerable. Which brings us back to the filing deadline. Everyone, including pundits like Bill Maher, expected a white knight conservative to jump in.
Right. Someone like Rick Caruso.
The developer who spent, what, $100 million last time?
$100 million of his own money, yeah. But he declined. Austin Butner declined. They looked at the landscape and realized the right-wing brand is just too toxic in LA right now.
So you have this total vacuum on the right.
Completely empty.
Yeah.
And that vacuum on the right is exactly what gave Nithya Raman the strategic opening to run from the left.
Because she doesn't have to worry about being the spoiler.
Exactly. She doesn't have to worry that splitting the Democratic vote will accidentally hand the mayor's office to a Republican.
Okay, so let's talk about Nithya Raman. Who is she? Because she's not your typical career politician.
No, she's an urban planner. Degrees from Harvard and MIT.
And crucially, she was the first Democratic Socialist of America member, the DSA, to win an LA City Council seat.
Right, back in 2020. And she did it by unseating an incumbent, which is really hard to do in local politics.
But the wild part of this story is the betrayal narrative. I mean, Bass and Raman were allies. Bass actually endorsed Raman's re-election campaign.
And Raman endorsed Bass for mayor just a few weeks before jumping into the race herself.
It's wild. Raman told reporters it wasn't a sudden break. She called it a slow boil over the city's lack of urgency, but still.
Yeah, it definitely shocked the establishment. But if you look at her ideology, Raman isn't just a cookie-cutter socialist. She has this really interesting pragmatist streak.
Oh, you're talking about the mansion tax?
Yes, Measure ULA.
So for you listening, Raman helped create this tax. It's a massive tax on real estate sales over $5 million. And the money goes to fund affordable housing.
Which sounds very standard DSA.
Right. But the American Prospect noted that she recently argued to limit that exact same tax on new apartment buildings.
Right, because she wants to encourage construction. It's a YMBY stance, yes. She realized that if you tax new developments too heavily, developers just won't build them.
Which puts her at odds with the hardliners in her own coalition.
Exactly. She's willing to make enemies on the far left if the math makes sense for urban planning.
But there is one area where she is definitely not compromising, and that's public safety. This is the massive split between her and Bass.
The defining issue of the race, honestly.
Because Bass wants to hire more police. The LAPD is dealing with huge attrition, and Bass wants to fund recruitment to fix that.
And Raman voted against that police funding. She has a history of defund rhetoric.
Right. She argues for unarmed crisis responders and mental health professionals over armed officers, which, given how hangry voters are about street conditions, is a really bold stance.
It is, and it draws a really fascinating parallel to what happened in New York City. The sources refer to it as the Mamdani effect.
Right. The victory of socialist Zohran Mamdani in the New York mayoral race. So the big question in these sources is Los Angeles next? Can Raman pull off the same kind of upset?
Well, structurally, Los Angeles is actually more liberal than New York City.
Really? More liberal?
Yeah, Republicans make up only about 15% of registered voters in LA. So the ceiling for a leftist candidate is theoretically much higher. The demographics have shifted massively over the last 20 years.
Away from the homeowners.
Exactly. Homeowners used to dominate LA politics.
Yep.
Now the coalition is younger. It's renters, immigrants, service workers. That's Raman's base.
But there's a catch, right? The ground game.
A huge catch. Mamdani won New York because he had a volunteer army of over 100,000 people knocking on doors.
And the LA chapter of the DSA?
They have maybe 3,500 members.
Oh, wow. That is a massive difference.
It's a completely different scale. So the skepticism in the sources is really about whether Raman can actually mobilize those younger renters without that massive volunteer infrastructure.
Which brings us to a really fascinating analysis from JCI Worldwide.
Yeah.
We have to dive into this because it's completely counterintuitive.
I love this theory.
The theory is that Nithya Raman entering the race might actually guarantee that Karen Bass wins.
Right. Because you have to look at vote splitting.
Walk us through that, because Raman isn't the only progressive running, is she?
No, she's not. You also have Ray Huang, who is another progressive DSA-aligned candidate.
So Huang and Raman are going to be fighting over the exact same voters, the far left lane.
Exactly. They split the left vote. And what does that do for Mayor Bass? It allows her to solidly occupy the center.
She gets to be the adult in the room.
Precisely. With the left fighting itself over ideological purity, Bass becomes the pragmatic choice. She locks up the moderates, the unions, the business owners.
And even that 15% of Republicans.
Right, because they have nowhere else to go. They certainly aren't voting for the candidates talking about defunding the police.
So Bass's strategy, according to JCI, is just don't attack. Just cut ribbons, look mayoral, and let the left fracture.
It's a structural advantage. She doesn't even need to run a defensive campaign.
But she still has to navigate the wedge issues. And reading through the Forward's reporting, it's wild how much global politics are impacting this local race.
You're talking about the war in Gaza.
Yes. It has become this massive wedge. And Raman is walking an impossible tightrope here.
She really is, because she called for a ceasefire, which alienated some of the traditional Jewish establishment voters.
But she also affirmed Israel's right to exist, condemned Hamas, and actively opposed the BDS movement.
Which absolutely infuriated the hardline DSA members.
Right, so she's taking fire from both sides. And Bass, meanwhile, has more traditional establishment support, even though she's caught some heat for how she handled protests near synagogues.
It's a perfect example of how the big tent Democratic coalition is fracturing. But honestly, as divisive as foreign policy is, the thing driving local turnout is homelessness.
Right, the visceral issue, what you see on your street.
And this isn't just a debate about funding. It is a fundamental philosophical difference.
Between Bass and Raman.
Yes. Mayor Bass supports what they call buffer zones, keeping encampments at least 500 feet away from schools and daycares.
Which, to a lot of parents, sounds like basic common sense.
Right. But Raman firmly opposes those zones. She argues for compassion and care over policing. She says you can't just ban people from public spaces if you don't have permanent housing to put them in.
But for those hangry voters we talked about earlier, the ones dealing with the aftermath of the fires and the cost of living.
They don't want to hear about the philosophy of public space. They want clean sidewalks.
Exactly. So if Bass can hold Raman below 50% in the June primary, they go to a runoff in November.
And that's where things get really dangerous for an incumbent.
Right, because runoff elections are basically a referendum on the person currently in charge.
Exactly. It's a test of whether a big tent Democratic Party can actually survive in a major American city, or if it's just destined to fracture into these warring ideological tribes.
It really makes you wonder about the long-term implications. I mean, think about it. If Raman, the architect of the mansion tax, actually wins, does that signal the end of private development in Los Angeles?
It's a real fear for the business community.
But on the flip side, if Bass wins by just consolidating the center and letting the left split itself, does that prove the socialist wave we've been hearing about for years has finally hit its ceiling in America?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is, and it's something for all of you listening to chew on as we get closer to June. Keep your eyes on those results, because what happens in LA isn't just local news. It is a very clear forecast for the Democratic Party nationwide.
It's definitely going to be one to watch.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.